Makoko woke with the sun, a hush of waves slapping against wooden stilts and paddle strokes cutting through the water. In one of the weathered shanties rising out of the lagoon, Simi sat on a low stool, barefoot, a paintbrush gripped tightly in her left hand. The walls around her were decorated in vibrant, swirling murals of life in motion. Fishermen casting nets, women balancing baskets, children diving into the water like birds. She couldn't speak, but her art roared. She had been mute since birth. No one in Makoko questioned why anymore. Her mother, who sold smoked fish by the bridge, said Simi's soul simply chose silence. But Simi had found another voice, color. Each stroke of ochre or indigo on plywood told a story she couldn't spell out in sound. As the boats passed by their home that morning, neighbors waved at the painted faces smiling from their walls, Simi's language. That day as she cleaned her brushes beside the stilts, she heard it, the strange rhythm of bass and breath, not from a speaker but alive, raw. Her eyes followed the sound to a canoe bouncing slightly as a boy leaned over the edge, mouthing words silently but spitting them with intense movement. His arms beat the rhythm against his chest, his lips curling with each invisible verse. He was deaf, everyone knew. They called him Toby Beat. And now he had noticed her watching. Toby anchored his canoe near Simi's platform and raised 2 fingers in greeting. She nodded, curious. They had never spoken, couldn't really, but something between them sparked. He tapped his chest twice and pointed to her mural of a flying fish. She understood. It was his way of saying, "That's fire." She gestured for him to wait, then slipped inside her home. A moment later she emerged with a plywood board and her charcoal pencil. She sketched quickly, her hand dancing. When she turned it to him, it was a caricature. Him in his canoe, arms wrapping, a crown tilted on his head. Toby laughed, soundless but full. He slapped the side of his canoe and beat out a rhythm in reply, mouthing lyrics just for her. From that day they met every morning at the edge of her house. He rapped with his hands and body, and she painted what she felt from the energy of his silent bars. Their collaboration was wordless yet powerful. People gathered, curious, moved. Some thought it was entertainment. Others saw something deeper. In a place where dreams often drowned, these two were crafting their own raft of hope. News traveled fast in Makoko, even across watery alleys. The local arts center, funded by a Lagos NGO, had announced a national competition. Winners would earn scholarships and mentorship from top creatives in Nigeria. The theme, voice. Simi's mother read the poster aloud from a crumpled flyer, her eyes dancing with cautious hope. Simi's heart raced. It was ironic. A mute girl and a deaf boy entering a contest about voice? She didn't care. She wanted in. She paddled to Toby's platform, excitement in every gesture. She held up the flyer. He leaned in, brows furrowing as he scanned it. Simi tapped her throat, then her heart, then pointed to both of them. He blinked, then slowly smiled. They would enter, together. She would paint, he would rap. The irony would be their strength. They spent their afternoons preparing. Toby's beats became more intricate, his expressions sharper. Simi painted massive panels of Makoko's soul, struggles, resilience, rhythm. She even painted sound, echoes, rumbles, vibrations. Each piece pulsed with emotion. They worked in sync, no words spoken, just trust, just creation. Around them, their floating slum watched, slowly believing that maybe, just maybe, this odd pair could win something bigger than a prize. They decided to test their act at the weekend fish market, the busiest place in Makoko. With borrowed drums, Toby set the tempo from his canoe. Simi propped up her paintings like walls around him. The beat drew attention, but it was the sight of him rapping, silent yet fierce, amid a gallery of swirling art that froze people mid-step. Children clapped. Elders leaned on canes, eyes wide. Even the stubborn trader known for yelling at anything louder than his thoughts gave a soft nod. Simi moved among the crowd, giving small drawings to kids, her way of saying thanks. When the last beat dropped, there was no applause, only stunned silence. Then, like the water lapping their homes, a wave of cheers rose. That night, Toby's father, who rarely spoke of his son's dreams, gripped his shoulder and nodded once. Simi's mother sat with her, stroking her hair. "You have found your way, my love," she whispered. And Simi, smiling wide, added the moment to her memory like a new shade on her palette. The letter came in a blue envelope, water-stained but still legible. They had been selected, one of 10 finalists for the National Arts Competition. They were to travel to Victoria Island, where the event would be hosted. Transport would be covered and accommodations arranged. Simi nearly dropped the letter into the lagoon from shock. Toby read her face, then grabbed the paper, eyes scanning, mouth moving soundlessly. Then he screamed, not with his voice but with his entire being. Preparations began quickly. Neither of them had ever left Makoko. Toby's aunt lent him a faded suit. Simi altered an old dress of her mother's, painting abstract designs into its fabric. Their neighbors pitched in. Someone donated art supplies, another brought travel snacks. They were not just going as individuals, they were going as the soul of Makoko. The day before their departure, they stood at the edge of the water, staring at the skyline across the lagoon. Lights blinked from towers they had only seen from afar. Toby signed, "Tomorrow we fly." Simi laughed, a soundless burst of joy, and pointed to the water. "No," she mouthed. "We sail." Victoria Island was everything Makoko was not. Paved roads, towering glass buildings, air-conditioned halls, and people who walked fast with their heads buried in glowing phones. Simi clutched her art portfolio tightly as she and Toby stepped off the ferry and into the waiting arms of the city. The competition venue was a sleek art center, its walls covered in banners that read, "Find Your Voice." Other contestants looked polished. One had her makeup done by a professional team, another carried a violin case with golden clasps. Simi's painted dress turned heads. Toby's silent rhythm confused some and intrigued others. When they introduced themselves, a girl from Abuja scoffed. "A mute and a deaf boy? Is this charity or a competition?" But the organizers welcomed them warmly. Each team had a day to rehearse and another to perform. Simi and Toby were given a large white wall and a sound stage. Alone in their practice room, Toby turned to her and signed, "Let them stare. We'll make them listen." Their rehearsal was electric. Toby moved like water across the stage, slapping his chest, stomping in rhythm, mouthing lyrics that burned with truth. His verses spoke of silence as power, of hearing through the skin, of rhythm born from within. Beside him, Simi transformed the blank wall. She painted the lagoon, Makoko rooftops, and finally, hands reaching out of water toward the sky. The judges observed from a glass panel, saying nothing. But when Simi stepped back, her hands dripping red and blue, and Toby froze mid-pose, their forms backlit by the murals, they knew they had created something unforgettable. That night, in their modest hostel room, they couldn't sleep. Toby tapped out beats on the window ledge while Simi scribbled ideas in a sketchbook by flashlight. There was no plan for fame, just the shared fire of two unheard voices ready to explode. The eve of the performance brought tension. One team had their costumes stolen, another boy broke down crying under pressure. Simi sat quietly in the hostel hallway, her sketchpad on her knees. Toby joined her, offering half a boiled egg and a cracked smile. They watched the moonlight ripple across the tiled floor. She pointed to it, then to the sketch of a boat with wings. He understood. "We'll fly tomorrow," he signed. She nodded and drew a crown on the boat's prow. A knock on their door interrupted the calm. It was a judge, a tall woman with dreadlocks and horn-rimmed glasses. "You two are the most original act I've seen in years," she said. "Remember, your silence is not a weakness. It's a different kind of loud." She left before either could respond, but her words stayed with them like a heartbeat. The auditorium buzzed with energy. An audience of over 500 filled the seats, cameras clicked and lights danced. When it was their turn, Toby and Simi walked onto the stage like they were stepping into their home. No nerves, just purpose. The lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the center. Toby started. He pounded his chest, stomped, and moved with raw emotion. Behind him, Simi painted live, fast, bold strokes of a boat struggling through a storm. He mouthed a verse about surviving silence, finding rhythm in rejection, and the noise that lives in love. Her brush followed his words like a dance partner, adding fire, wings, and eventually, a glowing horizon. The audience was silent. No one blinked. When it ended, Simi dropped her brush. Toby held his last pose, sweat glistening on his forehead. A single clap echoed. Then a wave of applause, shouts, even tears. Backstage, other contestants came to shake their hands. Even the girl from Abuja apologized. "You two, you didn't just perform. You preached," she said, voice thick with emotion. The judges called them aside after the show. "You told a story we didn't know we needed," one said. Another simply hugged them. But no results were announced that night. Final scores would be shared the next morning. That night, Makoko felt closer than ever. Simi sat on the balcony, her fingers still stained in red, while Toby tapped rhythms against a pillow. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The stars above were enough. And below them, the city buzzed with their echo. Morning came with birdsong and nerves. Contestants gathered in the main hall, fidgeting and whispering. A screen flickered to life. Names and rankings rolled upward. When it stopped, gasps filled the room. First place, Team 27, Simi and Toby, Makoko, Lagos. Toby jumped. He grabbed Simi's hands, spinning her in a circle as she laughed, breathless. They didn't scream or cry. They simply stood together, smiling at the scoreboard like it was the dawn they had painted. The prize included a scholarship to a prestigious Lagos Arts Academy, personal mentorships, and a national exhibition. But for them, the real prize was proving they belonged, even when the world never expected them to. News cameras followed them home. Reporters in crisp shirts struggled to balance on canoes, asking questions neither Simi nor Toby could answer without a translator. But their community spoke for them, neighbors, friends, even market women. They put Makoko on the map, one woman declared. A week later, a mural Simi painted on the side of a public building was unveiled. It showed her and Toby back to back, rising from the water with wings of sound and color. Underneath, a caption read, "Every silence has a voice." Toby's YouTube channel exploded. His silent freestyles went viral. Simi's paintings were displayed in art fairs. But despite it all, they stayed grounded, spending evenings sketching and composing on the same wooden platforms where it all began. Fame brought cracks. A talent agent wanted to separate them, offering Toby a solo contract and Simi a painting residency abroad. "Your work can stand alone," they were told. "You don't need each other." For the first time, tension flared. Toby stormed off during a sketch session. Simi, heart pounding, watched him disappear down a watery alley. That night she painted only in black. The silence between them wasn't peaceful anymore. It hurt. But Makoko whispered. Andy's told stories of loyalty. A child brought Simi a drawing of her and Toby holding hands. Even the water, they said, could not divide two who truly listened. Days passed. Then one afternoon Toby returned. No dramatic entrance. He just sat beside her, tapped a beat on the floor and mouthed, "I missed us." Simi didn't reply with signs. She pulled out a brush and painted a small boat on his palm. They spoke in their language again, gesture, rhythm, breath. They were not meant to be apart. Not now. Not ever. Together, they declined the separate offers and instead proposed a joint mentorship program for youth in Makoko, teaching art, rhythm, expression. The academy accepted. They would build something new, something lasting, something theirs. Months later, their exhibition opened in Lagos. On the gallery's main wall was a piece titled Silent Love. It was a split canvas. One side an ocean of color, the other a sound wave etched in charcoal. In the middle, two silhouettes, one painting, the other rapping. Simi stood beside it, watching visitors move in awe. Toby approached, signing, "We made it." She touched her throat, then her heart, then reached for his hand. There was no need for more. Their love was never loud. It didn't shout or flash. It bloomed quietly, like brushstrokes over time, like rhythm under water. Together, in silence, they had found a voice that could never be ignored.